best friend drama that resulted in losing a friend and a brother, and I'm not sad about it at all. Friend feuds. Buckle up, ladies and gents, this story is a literal shit show and your head may or may not hurt after reading all this, but I promise it's worth the read. So I, 28 years old female, met a friend 2 years ago while attending college, let's call her Katie. We were in the same class, and there wasn't a lot of females in this particular class. So all the girls in the class naturally drew to one another. There was only 7 of us. We would help each other, sit with each other during lunch. Well, I had started to notice that Katie was starting to struggle and she was more quiet. I offered to help her and we started becoming closer as friends. Then during 1 week of school, I had noticed that she wasn't there, and a day turned into 2 and 2 days turned into the whole week. A lot of us started to get concerned, but for some reason I was the only one who was able to guess why she had been missing. She had been admitted into the physics ward for certain thoughts. When she came back, I talked to her privately and explained I knew why she was gone. She didn't need to talk about it if she didn't want to, but I was there to help. And that is where our friendship began. Because she had missed so much school, she was severely behind in the class, and I helped her catch up, gave her notes, walked her through the assignments, you get the picture, and luckily she was able to pass and graduate with everyone else. From there, we started to hang out outside of class, especially since the class was coming to an end. She had started dating this one guy, but she was having mixed feelings about it. I invited her to come trick-or-treating with myself, my child, and my brother. And she agreed. While we were out on Halloween night, she kept talking to my brother, who was single at the time. Turns out that they had a lot in common. At one point, she even told me that she thought he was cute and he felt the same way about her. After I went home that night, I gave them each other's phone numbers and let them take it from there. Eventually, it led to them hanging out more, going on dates, and then finally officially dating. First, I was all for it. If anything, I was happy for them both, but later down the road, I started to change my tune. I did not know how much drama came with her. She has an eating disorder, and at times it got really bad. Now, for the record, before I continue this story, I am in no way judging her for her disorder at all. But I started to notice that she would use that to her advantage for attention. She had one job where she started to constantly call out because of this issue or because she was depressed, constantly in and out of the hospital because she would be so weak, which in turn led to her having issues at work. She knew she needed help but refused to do anything about it, and no one can force her to get help either. One time my brother had called me frantic because she wasn't answering her phone and he was worried about her. I called her and asked why she wasn't answering, and come to find out she was binging in her car. Eventually, after a lot of ups and downs, we finally got her into a support group, to therapy, and on meds. And things slowly started to get a bit better. I always knew when she was lying to me, about if she had been throwing up and doing that stuff again, and she knew she couldn't hide it from me. Weeks had gone by, she's doing good. And all of a sudden it stopped. She had been throwing up again and led to her blacking out at work and then being taken to the hospital in an ambulance. The next day, she calls me at work. Now I have a job where I cannot be on my phone, my attention has to be at my job at all times. So I know if she is calling me, it must be important. I step away from my desk, and when I answer the phone, she did not sound like herself. I could tell something was wrong. So I dispatched an ambulance to her home and rushed over there. Her family had been gone for the day, but I was able to get inside before help arrived and found her seizing on her bed. I immediately jumped into action, helped EMS when they got there, and rode with them to the hospital. Her family and my brother met us at the hospital. And that is where all hell broke loose. My brother and one of her family members did not get along at all. One of her family members was mad at me for calling an ambulance, claiming that she was faking everything, that she was doing all of this for attention. When she was finally discharged, her family member and my brother ended up getting into a heated fight in the parking lot, which had to be stopped by security, and we took her to my house. That night we went back over to her family's house to get some clothes and her car. We were met at the door by said family member who was yelling at us, telling us to leave, threatening to call the cops. And we were only there to get her clothes and an overnight bed. Now I had told said family member, go ahead, call the cops, what are they going to do? She lives here and you are trying to refuse her stuff. I was able to convince them to allow her to get some clothes and that we would be leaving, but they made it clear she wasn't allowed back and she was being forced out. So then that led to her being homeless. When my brother found this out, he was upset, but offered for her to stay with him. Now granted, they hadn't been together very long at this point, but she agreed and she then moved in with him. Now my brother already had a roommate living with him and was splitting bills with, but they made it work with the 3 of them. For a while it seemed like everything was finally at peace. Her and my brother were happy. She was out of that toxic home and finally able to get back on track. Or so I thought. First, my brother wasn't making her pay for bills or anything until things had settled. So therefore, that's when more issues started. Now she was always calling out of work, falling behind on bills left and right. I had to help her pay for stuff on numerous occasions. My brother was also helping her pay for stuff, and so was her mom. It was a never-ending cycle. Eventually, she was let go because they could not count on her to be at work. And for a long while, she was out of a job and not actively looking for one. Which means, again, everyone else was carrying the load for her. I know. Not the best thing to do. She then decided to get not one but two cats that she couldn't afford. She started to smoke weed because my brother did it, and drinking when she was underage, 20, almost 21. Eventually, there had been an argument between the two of them about getting back to work and helping financially, and to stop all the BS. So she finally found a new job. Things had been calm for the most part. I had issues with them in the sense of they were always coming with their hand out expecting things. Example, always complaining that they had no food for groceries and that they are going hungry and are living off of top ramen, but then again, they had applied for food stamps, got them, and then never used them. Or I told them about local food banks where you could go to get food, but they would never do it. And let me add that I am a single mom with a fixed income. I was even denied food stamps because they said I make too much money, but I was always willing to help. And I had helped fill up their fridge multiple times, dropping easily several $100s to make sure they were stocked up. But when I needed help with something super small, couldn't be bothered to help me. Or when I would ask if she wanted to hang out, she would tell me that would rather sit there and watch my brother play video games. I'm sorry, what? Who wants to do that? I started to realize that this isn't someone who is my friend, and I slowly started to back away. Eventually, after a few months, she had reached out telling me she wanted to talk. She came over and apologized for her behavior and wanted us to work on our friendship because she didn't want to lose me as a friend. I agreed that I would give it another go. That was my next mistake. Again, for the next several months, things were okay-ish. She had finally gotten a new job and had planned to go back to school, but she had stopped going to therapy and was still smoking weed. I warned her many times that she needed to stop doing that because when you go to school, they will drug test you. Remember this part? It's almost like every time things started to go in the right direction, she would purposely self-sabotage everything to create a problem that didn't need to be happening in the first place, and I could never understand why. She started to go back down the path of destruction, and again, like her last job, she started calling out more, having health issues, never had any money, always coming to me for help. You see a pattern here? Eventually, all of this led to her new job cutting her hours way back to 1 day a week, essentially starving her out. I had told her numerous times to find a new job and to stop smoking weed, but instead of looking or applying at places, she would just sit at home and do nothing. I had sent her several job links that were in the field that she was wanting to go back to school for and that she was qualified to do. She finally applied for one and got an interview. Okay, great, we're getting somewhere. Then tells me the interview went great and that they would call her in a few days to let her know if she got the job or not. I was hopeful for her and told her that I would keep my fingers crossed. A few days later, I am at work, and again get a call in the middle of my shift. So I step aside and call her back stating this better be an emergency because I am working. She was sobbing on the other line. Apparently, she was having issues at her current job and something had happened between her and a manager, which resulted in the manager telling her to leave mid-shift. Now she had already been written up 2x due to the fact that she was always calling out or doing no-call, no-shows. So she's crying telling me she is worried that they are going to fire her because this was her last chance. I then asked her, did you ever hear from that job you did an interview with? She then states, no, they never called me back like they said they would, so fuck them. And I was like, whoa, why didn't you call them? Maybe there is a reasonable explanation as to why they haven't called you yet. This was in December right before Christmas, so people are busy. So I told her to get off the phone with me and call that other place and find out if you got the job or not. Turns out, they had lost her paperwork and been trying to find a way to get a hold of her to tell her that she had gotten the job but were waiting for her to call in. She texts me to tell me the news, so I then told her, okay, walk into work and tell them this is your last day and forget about that place. She then proceeded to do so, and she came over that night to celebrate and was all excited because things were getting better. The next day, she texts me asking if she can come over and talk because something happened, so I'm like, sure, come on over. She then proceeds to come over, sit on my couch, and just cry. So I'm like, what's going on? She tells me that my brother and her had gotten into an argument and he got in her face and screamed at her. Right off the bat, I'm like, no, that's not acceptable behavior and I'll kick his ass if I need to. Next, she tells me that apparently my brother had spent the last of their money for the week on weed and that they had no food again. So I pack her up in my car and drive her over to my mom's house where we explained everything to her. My mom and I agreed that we would take them shopping again for groceries and take them to the food bank to get food, but after this, no more, that they needed to figure it out. And that my mom would talk to my brother about his behavior towards her because it was unacceptable. During all of this going on, I had my own personal issues I was dealing with. My partner's dad had ended up in the ICU and almost died. My mom was diagnosed with a medical condition that at the time had almost went badly due to it being untreated for so long. And she almost ended up in the hospital, trying to work and taking care of my child. And while I have all of my own stress happening, I am also taking on their issues and problems. So I was just mentally exhausted. The next day, my mom and I kept our promise and go to Walmart and drop easily $500 on groceries for them. Had also picked them up a food box, and so therefore they should have plenty of food to get by for a while. They were both appreciative and happy. That Sunday, she came to church with me and my family, and everything was fine. Now on that Monday, my child had a performance at their school. We were all going to go to show support, including Katie and my brother. I was at home taking a nap before we had to leave. I had been awake at this point for almost 3 days straight due to spending time in the ICU and working a 12-hour shift. I needed this nap. When I get a phone call from Katie. She is just ranting and raging and complaining about just random stuff. I figured she may just need to vent, so I put her on mute. Work on getting my child ready for their performance and then getting myself ready, just allowing her to vent in the background. She had asked me for my opinion on a specific topic that she was complaining about. At this point, I am in my car driving to pick up my mom. She had been going on for about 45 minutes at this point and still going. I had attempted to give my opinion a few times, but I would just be cut off with more ranting. After this whole thing went on for almost an hour, I finally cut her off and just asked, "Do you enjoy surrounding yourself with negativity and drama?" Her no. "Then why do you continue to do so?" I asked. I explained to her that she cannot control what other people do and needs to stop looking at everything in such a negative aspect and to let it go. She was quiet for a minute, and then I told her that I needed to get off the phone and I would see them in a bit. She said okay. We get to the school, drop my child off with their class, and wait to go into the theater. As we are sitting there waiting, my mom gets a text and it's from Katie. She looks at her phone, then asks me if Katie and I had gotten into a fight. I was a no. Why? Well, did you say something to offended her? I don't think so. Why? She then shows me her phone of the text. Katie had texted my mom saying that her and my brother would not be joining us because she had been offended by what I had said and she was upset and hurt, therefore they were not coming. I was shocked. So I stepped outside to call her. It went straight to VM, attempted to call again, same thing. I then sent her a message stating that first off, if she was upset not to be going to my mom, this isn't middle school drama. We are both adults. If she was upset by something I had said, she should have told me and I would have apologized. She just told me to leave her alone and that she needed some space, so I was like, fine. I was more disappointed in them, especially my brother, because they let me child down after saying that they would be there, and as a parent that was upsetting. But whatever, fine, I'll give them their space. Days go by and I don't hear anything from her or my brother. Respecting Katie's wishes, I figured I'd let her reach out to me. That Thursday I am at home making dinner and I get a call from my mom. She tells me that apparently someone had attempted to break into Katie's and my brother's house, that they had to call the police and that she was afraid to be home alone, so my brother had asked my mom if she would essentially babysit Katie the next day. My mom was confused and asked why. He explained that she was afraid to be there by herself and figured she could hang out with my mom for the day. My mom explained that her and I had plans so Katie could come over, but she wasn't changing her plans. He agreed and that was that. The next morning I get up, it's like 6:30 in the morning. I am trying to get my child ready for school when I see that I have several missed calls and text messages from Katie's mom. So I am confused, but she stated it was an emergency, so I call her back. Mind you, I am not fully awake at this point. So I call her and ask, is this about someone trying to break into their home, because I am already aware. She said no. Now remember back in the story where I had mentioned that Katie was smoking weed and I had advised her many times to stop? Yeah, well, turns out that the new job she had gotten required her to take a drug test. Not a shocker considering the type of field it was in, so what did you expect? And turns out she failed the drug test. 'Cause she failed the test, it was like an atomic bomb went off. She started to threaten suicide, called the suicide hotline. Cops showed up at her mom's house in another state looking for her. She apparently went to the church to pray. No, none of this is a joke, this all happened. I told her mom that she wasn't talking to me and that there wasn't anything that I could do. I then next called my mom to warn her about the mess that was heading her way, because remember, she didn't want to be alone at her house. She then goes over to my mom's house and she acts all depressed, so my mom had asked her what was wrong, even though she already knew, and Katie had explained what happened and swore up and down that she wasn't smoking weed. That apparently she had been around my brother while he was smoking and got a contact high. Regardless of if this is true or not, it's not. You knowingly went and sat by someone while they are smoking, knowing the possible consequences of those actions. No one forced you to do that. And my mom had explained that to her. After over an hour, she had finally left my mom's house and she didn't return. My mom later that day told me what had happened. I laughed that she tried to blame it on a contact high. I told my mom that she literally has a weed pen that she smokes from. So my mom was like, wait, is it small and black? So I was like, yeah, why? She literally sat outside talking to my mom while smoking weed and swore up and down she didn't smoke. What? I tell everyone that I am sorry that happened, but I am not getting involved. Actions have consequences, and unfortunately, she is now going to have to live with the consequences of her choice. And yes, she lost that job. Now we are literally days away from Christmas. My mom and I are getting ready since we were hosting at my house, finishing up shopping, etc. Still at this point, I have not heard from Katie and or my brother in almost a week and a half at this point, but I knew everything that was going on. Come that Monday, 2 days before Christmas. I am at a class at the gym. When it is done, I check my phone and see that I again have several missed calls and texts from Katie's mom saying that it was an emergency, so here I am thinking, dear God, what now? I call her and she tells me that she had been on the phone with Katie, and that all of a sudden she heard a loud crash and she stopped responding, so her mom had sent out an ambulance to her home. But she wanted to get a hold of my brother and did not have his number. I let her know that he was at work, but I could get a hold of him for her. So I get off the phone with her and I call my brother's work, letting them know it was an emergency, so he gets on the phone and I proceed to say, hey, I'm getting ready to leave the gym. Katie's mom just called me and said that something happened and there is an ambulance at your house. She didn't have your number and I know you are at work and can't really leave. I am heading that way to go home. Would you like me to stop by your house and see what's going on and call you back? At this point, he just starts screaming at me, basically blaming me for everything that was happening with her, told me to F off, that I would just make things worse, and to basically go pound sand. I was so taken back by this reaction that I just started bawling, trying to wrap my head around how any of this is my fault. How was it my fault that she failed her drug test, or that she was having issues, or that my brother got mad at her, or she lost her job? Like, none of that is my fault. I called her mom back and explained what happened and told her that I no longer wanted to be contacted about these issues, that I could not deal with it anymore. I then proceeded to call my mom and explained what had happened, and I at this point was just an emotional wreck. You may think, well, why were you crying over that, like it's not a big deal? Well, for me, it was because for over a year, 2 people who I loved and cared about, anytime they came to me for help, no matter how big or small it was, I was there to help. I helped with groceries many times, helped them pay bills, was there when they needed to vent and or talk, took them out to lunches, to dinners, took Katie to get her nails done. Just so much stuff with zero expectation of anything in return. Every time she would fall backwards, I was always there to help guide her back on the right path. And this is the thanks I get and the way I get treated? I don't think so. My mom met me at my house and she was absolutely disgusted with them both and their behavior, because like me, my mom had also helped them many times for other things as well. She then made the decision that we were uninviting them from Christmas. My mom and I had spent easily over $1,000 on gifts for each of them separately, and gifts for them combined, like for the household. I even made them each their own hand-sewed blanket that took me months to work on. And then we also spent several $100s for Christmas dinner. My mom explained to my brother that if they did not apologize for their behavior, that they were not coming. Literally radio silence, so because they did not want to apologize, the next day my mom and my child filled up the car, literally the trunk, the back seat, the front seat, every inch of that car was filled with gifts that she went and dropped off to them. They both said that Katie and my brother just looked upset but didn't say anything. To this day, over a month after all this went down, they still have not reached out to my or my mom. Not once did they thank us for the gifts, apologize for their behaviors, nothing. Because of this, I made the choice to no longer continue a friendship with Katie. I sent her and my brother both long messages explaining my feelings and that a friendship was no longer an option. I told my brother that if he needed me for an emergency, that he could reach out to me, otherwise until he apologizes I will not be in contact with them. It hurts, especially when it's people you love, but at the same time I didn't want to take that drama into the new year. Also, to add context, I found out that the day before an ambulance was sent out to my brother's house, he had to take Katie to the ER because she had a UTI that turned into a kidney infection and she had been peeing blood. When they were at the ER, somehow between the parking lot and the ER she lost her keys. They called a locksmith out to open the car thinking that they were locked inside the car. They come out and find out that they were not in the car, wasted all that money and still could not find the keys, so they were forced to leave the car there overnight. So after the whole Christmas fiasco, I went zero contact with my brother and his girlfriend. Was it upsetting? Yes, but much needed. My mom would check in with my brother every few weeks to make sure he was still alive and okay. Through about 2 months of her checking in with him, he finally had told her to stop and essentially told her to F off. Not okay at all, so I reached out to him and let him know that if he has an issue with me, then it needs to be kept between us and he has no right treating our mom in that sense. He then reached out to my mom and apologized for his behavior towards her, and had asked to speak to her in person to give his side of things that had happened back in December. When he spoke to my mom, lo and behold, he wasn't doing good at all. His roommate had moved out and the person that was supposed to be moving in fell through. His GF never got a job, and so the whole time he was dealing with all the bills on his own, all the while they had cut his hours back at work. My mom ended up giving him money to get afloat, but made it clear that was it. Shortly after this, Katie had attempted to reach out to me, but because I had her blocked, her messages were not coming through. My brother and my mom both were pushing me to hear her out and what she had to say. So I unblocked her and asked what she wanted. All she wanted to say was that she was doing good and she has found God and she is working on things. Not once in her message did she thank me for all that I did. Apologize for her behavior, etc. So I basically told her that if that is all she had to say and wasn't going to apologize, then not to reach out again because I want nothing to do with them. been about 4 months now with no drama, no BS, no nothing. My mom keeps me up to date on how my brother is doing, but I have made the decision to step away until she is gone. Apparently they are both starting to do better, and that's great. But I feel as though this was the best choice and it's been great. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next story.